Welcome to CoalCast, Coalfire's
Oh my God.
Cybersecurity podcast. This is episode 4. We're talking with our boy Josh.
Yep.
And our names. Yeah, we need to say those, don't we? I'm
They're
Logan.
kind of important.
Yeah. Who am I?
And I'm Nate as
yeah.
well.
And then
Yeah.
Josh is the third person.
I am the guest, I think the term is.
Yeah. Maybe not for long though, Josh. Maybe you're gonna come on as like as a staple
You
food
know
group.
what?
Were you thinking the same thing?
I mean, he has such a strong voice.
Yeah.
We'll see how this one goes, and we'll
Yeah.
move on from there.
Pressure's on though,
Yeah,
because
exactly.
like most
This is
people
an
watching
audition.
this, they're like, okay, this Josh guy got
Clearly
big
knows what he's talking
expectations.
about
Yeah.
security now. All of a sudden, been introduced. Oh, he must know everything.
The king of computers,
oh, man.
Josh.
That is a scary idea.
Well, no, you're basically like the life and breath of
Coalfire,
all
yeah.
things
I have
IT, right?
been
Yeah.
around Coalfire for 6 years.
Yeah.
When I joined Coalfire, there were 150 people. Pentest was a total of 12 pentesters. Since we've now, I don't know, we're 5 times that number now.
Yeah.
So we were a small company. We had 1 PM that ran all of the engagements.
Now we have like 8 PMs.
Who
or
was
We
nine
the
are
PMs or
to I
something?
think 5.
5? Oh,
5.
do we not
PMs.
have like dedicated PMs in like the UK or anything?
We
or?
don't have. No, not for Pentest.
Oh my god, I figured there were at least like 2 there.
Who was the
wow.
PM that was there?
Michael Gill.
Oh, dang it.
Gil does all the PMing for the UK team?
Gil
No.
was the only PM back when I joined Pentest.
No way.
I didn't know
really?
it was that old.
Yeah,
So
I didn't know
yeah,
he'd been there that
Gil
long.
is probably Gil and I are probably beyond management. You know, Bruce and Mike. Gil
Right.
and I have been around the longest out of any of the people in Pentest.
Wow.
I did not know
So
that.
Me neither.
Gil and I have been around for the longest period. I joined the company I think before Gil, but Gil was part of Pentest before I was.
And you built up a lot of the stuff that the pen testers are using today.
When I
right?
started, Pentest was using consumer grade hardware to run their servers.
So like if you
Dang.
needed to crack a password, you were doing it on your laptop or something?
Yes, actually, we had builds that had graphics cards built in, so you could crack the password on your local desktop while you were working.
Now we
which
have-
didn't really work because imagine that your computer's trying to churn through a bunch of passwords and trying to emulate a VM and stuff.
Yeah.
Doesn't work so well.
No. Now we have a much better setup though.
We do.
We have NPK now, but before that we had
Whoop, whoop.
Brutalis.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we've got some other stuff coming down the pipe that way too.
Wait,
So,
more stuff?
Yeah, Brutalis. The abilities of Brutalis and such are going to be increased. Brutalis is actually the name of a product created by Sagitta. It's not actually the name of the.
Yeah.
Like for instance, it's not actually the name of of the computer that we named it.
Yeah,
it's
it's not like
actually
an
the name
internal
of the
company.
product from Sagitta, where they custom build these cracker boxes and they build custom drivers and they ship them to you.
I've heard that they're very particular with like customer service. Like you cannot change anything, otherwise they won't support it. Have you had to deal with that?
We had it when we installed it. Actually, this is a really good thing that ended up happening. Is we had it when we installed it. It came in some kind of messed up state. We weren't able to make it work. But the guy, actually the head of the company at the time, on Christmas or on Thanksgiving Eve or on Thanksgiving, actually logged in and fixed the computer entirely remotely from his parents' house while they were getting ready for Thanksgiving dinner.
Wow.
That's the level of support that Sagitta gave us, and I cannot, that is A-class, was fantastic. Totally awesome. But no, with those systems, they are particular about the drivers and stuff, because if you upgrade them past a certain point or do certain things with them, they can actually break those drivers.
Aren't they also like kind of particular about like not letting you upgrade Hashcat or something past a certain version?
I haven't noticed that, but
Okay.
they're touchy on certain things because there's certain updates. For instance, the system we have is kind of a unicorn. That was right at the peak of when Bitcoin was taking off and nobody could buy graphics cards. And so in order to get the graphics cards for this system, they drove to a Best Buy and bought out the Best Buy of the graphics card we needed so that they could go slot those cards. So we have a unique model where all of them are reference cards from a particular Best Buy purchase. You cannot buy these anywhere but Best Buy, and they were just put in that thing. So that is our box is a little unique.
Dang. I drove to Cheyenne, Wyoming once to get a graphics card. To get a graphics card and an HTC Vive.
From where?
It was a GameStop and a Best Buy, respectively, in Cheyenne,
Yeah.
Wyoming.
No, I mean, like, where'd you drive from?
From my
Denver?
house. Yeah,
From
like,
here.
from my house in
Nice.
Aurora, Colorado
Yeah.
to
Oh,
Cheyenne.
God.
It was like 2 hours because nobody
That's
carries
2 or
it.
half. Yeah, 2.5, 2 hours.
Yeah.
We used to go up there for fireworks, but yeah, haven't recently.
I almost went for the eclipse that happened.
Oh,
I
man.
didn't know when I moved here that Cheyenne was so close. I had
Well,
no
and not
idea.
only that, but that would have been a thing. My friends went to the eclipse, and it was actually they got engaged at the eclipse. Kind of cool.
That's cool.
But the like the roads, they said it was an 8-hour drive for like 15 miles. Like
Jeez.
and people were just pulling off on the sides because they were running out of gas. They were pulling off on the side of the road
Because they
and
were sitting idling on
setting
the
up
road.
camp.
Wow, that's
So
crazy.
people were just camping on the side of the highway because the highway wasn't moving.
Dang.
Dang.
That's
Yeah,
crazy.
so kind of crazy sitting in the path of the eclipse. We saw 98 or 99% occlusion, and that was still pretty cool.
Yeah, I've heard that the difference between like 95 and 100 is massive.
It is.
Like,
98 felt like it was dusk all of the time. 98, 99% occlusion. But it apparently went night, like dark night style at
Wow.
100% occlusion.
yeah, and then like you get that ring around
Yep,
the
exactly.
And you looked at the
Yeah, we
eclipse,
had the glasses and took
the
a
thing
look
that
at
like
it.
redirects it so you don't go blind. Or
They're
whatever.
just super dense or super dark lenses so that you can look at the sun
Like
safely.
welding glasses.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
Same
yeah.
idea. But
cool.
cheaper.
Way cheaper. Yeah.
Yeah, because if you look at a spark for welding, it'll actually like burn your eyes and can form like blisters on your eyes.
What?
Yeah,
Oh my
welding. Do
God.
not look at the spark. It can cause serious damage.
That's crazy.
I'm too tempted.
Yeah.
I'd be like, I just want to see what it looks
Like
like.
a moth to a
Yeah,
flame.
you want to see what the arc looks like. It will blind you.
Oh god.
I'm gonna do it anyway.
Not gonna do that.
Blisters
Last
ain't
thing
no
you
thing.
did, kind of thing.
Okay. So getting into it.
random facts about things.
Tell me
you
about
never
this
wanna know.
one. Tell me about this one.
Whoa,
okay.
whoa,
So
whoa,
we should
wait.
talk about what those are first. So
Well,
that's
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you
so
can
Nate,
explain it. Yeah.
Nate had never seen a DEF CON badge before today.
That's right.
So I brought in my pile of DEF CON badges from I've been going since 18. I missed 1 year since then, and and then I ended up helping out staffing since 22. And so all of these are old DEF CON badges. So
I've heard that sometimes if you're like a goon or if you're helping out in some form that you can get like leaked early diagrams, like what are they called, like circuit maps of these badges, and
I
people
have
will.
never seen that. Like, I'll be
Really?
honest, I've never, as a goon, I have never heard or seen anybody who got early diagrams on how this stuff works.
Jim mentioned, I don't remember the details because it was last year and it was in Vegas and everybody was drunk, but Jim mentioned that he either knew somebody or somebody told him that they got a early diagram of one of the boards and that they found out that you could short out the board by connecting two circuits. So they had enough time to go print out something. It was like shaped like a banana and it would connect those 2 points,
And
those
fry
two
the
contacts.
board?
Yeah. So they would go around handing these bananas out and being like, hey, connect this to your badge, connect this to your badge. It's like a cool little thing.
Welcome
And-
to DEF CON.
Yeah, everybody would just fry their
This is the
badges.
thing is like DEF CON is like you have to be to some degree smart about the things you do because you're going to get people trolling just as much as you're going to get people who are trying to help you out or something. And nobody will ever want to do. That's not true at all. I have not experienced a lot of people who are doing it maliciously, like going to attack you. I mean, there are people who do that, but a lot of people, it's for shits and giggles.
Yeah, because
And
they're
so
there
they
with
just-
their buddies and they want to show off.
And so part of it is just like expect hijinks at DEF CON. And the reason is because at DEF CON, that's just what happens is hijinks.
Yeah.
Now, is it true that you should like have an RFID proof wallet and don't bring your phone and all?
I
that
mean,
I bought a
be
burner.
smart, but
How
at the same
smart?
time, be smart.
How
Don't.
paranoid?
I'm not as paranoid as I used to be,
That surprises me.
but on the other hand, that's also because I've been around the community for longer. That's not to say that I'm like, bring your phone and leave Bluetooth and Wi-Fi and all this on or something.
Right.
But at the same time, like if you're smart about it and you know what you're doing in terms of like, setting up your AP correctly, or not your AP, but your connectivity, it's something that's really easily explainable is the DEF CON secure network is used by the DEF CON NOC goons to administer the network. They will actually go out on the con floor and they will connect into the secure network in order to manage the gear that makes the DEF CON network go. So if they're willing to trust their hardware and their stuff and they're the ones running that environment, then you're probably pretty safe on that environment if you set up to be securely connected. If you're just like, well, I'm just going to connect to any AP that's named this and hit the button, you're going to have problems.
Yeah.
But if you're being smart about how you're doing it, then it's a lot less dangerous.
The trouble
That's not to say don't worry about it. That's just to say if you're smart, then you're not necessarily like, I'm not going to take my phone and connect it to my Fitbit while I'm at DEF CON. Sorry. But at the same time, But at the same time, if you play intelligently, it's not as dangerous. It's not going to be like, oh my God, the world's coming to an end like everybody thinks it is.
Yeah, I got tricked into bringing a burner. There was a guy that we work with, Jack Hooker, and he was like really big on this burner thing. He found a sale that was like it was a good price for a burner. And I was like, why not? It's like $20 or whatever. I'll buy it. But I ended up not using the burner at all, just because like it's a pain. You have to give out that number to everybody, and it's like a crappy little.
I can't necessarily
Motorola.
say that's a good thing, but fair enough.
What, bringing a burner
or not, or like. It's such a pain, so I'm not going to do that. That's the downside of security a lot. Like, for instance, that would be a big problem. That's a big problem that like you face when working with pentesters.
Security
as an engineer working on the side of the blue team instead of the red team for a pentest department. That's a problem you have. Is a lot of pentesters want something done the easy way because it's fast and easy and simple. But when it really comes down to it, being secure and being simple. And doing it the easy way are not necessarily the same thing. And so you end up having to find these ways around things so that therefore your users are able to use the system, but at the same time you're still trying to be as secure as possible.
The thing that I found that worked for me at DEF CON, like the balance between security and usability, was just not using my phone. Like I turned my phone off and I hung out with the people that I was with, and if I got lost, I'd find somebody else to hang out with. And
we can't necessarily do that as goons, but
that's
because like we actually have to be connected to some degree. There's you have to get communications from the rest of your department, stuff like that. Especially as a team lead, as a team lead or a shift lead, you're going to have to do some of that level stuff. And it used to be a lot more radio. DEF CON still offers ham radio and stuff like that. So there are a lot of people who will walk around with Baofangs and ham radio and actually do that kind of thing at DEF CON.
Do you do ham radio?
I do not have a license.
Okay.
That's
so technically you cannot
I do not do ham radio because I do not have a license.
Yeah, I forgot about that with ham radio. You'd like have to.
It's one of those things I want to do, but recently they dropped the need for Morse code to remember Morse code, and dropping that in order to get your basic level, not your engineer necessarily, I think. But in order to get your basic level, you don't need to know Morse code anymore. And with not needing to know Morse code, I have been intent to actually, I think this year, I'm going to try for my ham radio license.
Ham radio is one of those things that I just never really got the appeal of. Like, I know there's a ton of people in the hacker community that are like, oh yeah, it's fun. You communicate with your boys and it's like kind of underground. And
can you explain what it is for people that may not?
Ham radio
is probably do a better job.
It's shortwave. It's a radio that is basically shortwave that people use to communicate, like CBs and truckers. That's the kind of thing that you're talking about. So people who are able to talk with the people around them, it's not something that's going to be like, you're not doing a broadcast at a at like the same power level or something as you do for like a commercial radio station, but it's home operators for radio. So that you're able to have communications. There's certain ways that you communicate. There's certain things you say. There's abbreviations, stuff like that that you need to know in order to communicate over ham radio. It's the consumer area of the radio spectrum.
Could you tell us more about your origin and how you got into tech? And
I've been doing this since I was like 15. Early on, my parents got a computer. They were very limiting on what I was able to do, but I still I got on the internet. I got to play with Windows 3.1 and stuff, and I'm still a youngin' compared to most people. Some people would be like, I was on a BBS or something. I was not old enough to be on those things at that time. But 4-year-old me does not know how to log into BBS. Okay, right. and so all of that. But I got on the internet fairly early on. 15, parents gave me unfettered access to the internet, which means I got to see all sorts of things. I got to go all sorts of places. I got to learn about computers, security, all sorts of crazy stuff.
Wonderful places.
Yeah, exactly. And this is back in the age when the internet was a little bit more wild. Like, it's calmed down and it's a lot more. But like the days when it's like, hey, I made this thing and I'm gonna slap it up on Newgrounds or whatever, and you're just like, okay, and now, and now, right? Well, I mean, it's coming back to some degree now that Tumblr's dying, but. Or stuff like that where people were like, hey, I made this website, and you'd go read, somebody just posted a random bunch of text files up on a domain somewhere, and the only domains were .com and .com and .net and .gov, and good luck getting a .gov or whatever. And the internet was still not a place that you could ever trust for resources and all that kind of stuff. Now, Amazon was still like a pretty blank web page.
So it's like Craigslist or eBay or something? I don't get it.
Exactly.
What's Amazon?
Navigator Netscape Navigator, early Netscape Navigator kind of thing.
Ask Jeeves, which we gave a shout out to before
Yeah.
earlier today. Yeah.
Yeah.
Back when search engines had mascots.
Yeah, exactly. Ask the search engine your question. But anyway, so I did all that, learned a bunch, went to college for computer science, was like, I want to learn the tech stuff. Actually tried to get into a computer security class, which was not what I expected from the class, but I still learned a lot. But we ended up starting the CSU security team, or the security group, club, whatever you want to call it. They actually compete in competitions like CCDC. They go to places like DEF CON. They do stuff like that. So we actually threw our own CTF once. Yeah,
nice. That's pretty fun.
I've learned a lot about it. I've helped out with like 3 or 4 CTFs at this point in my life. So did a bunch of that, and then was working for a company, didn't really work out, and they were like, you should come work for Coalfire. And so spent some time as an auditor, spent some time as a pen tester, and now here I am.
Nice. So Puppet, Ansible, Chef, all those different things.
Salt.
Do you have a favorite? Because I don't know anything about any of them. I worked with Ansible a little bit one time for a project.
They're different. They're used differently. I've found we've used Puppet here before. Ansible I haven't used, but I've heard good things in combination with Puppet. So Ansible reaches out to things. The difference is like you have a read-write model, right? Or a read model or a client model or server model. Mm-hmm. So like, for instance, Puppet reaches back to the server, and then the server talks to the client. But the entire thing is client-driven with Puppet. Salt is server-driven. In our way, I think you can make it client-driven, but the server reaches out and talks to the clients.
Ansible, I know, is like
Ansible
all
is
SSH.
that. It's all SSH. It's all the server reaching out to the client. So like pushing things with Salt and pushing things with Salt and Ansible, really easy. You want to run a command on 50 computers, 100 computers, 5,000 computers at the same time? You can do that really quickly with Ansible and with Salt. You cannot do that easily with Puppet. Now, on the other hand, like for instance, for drones or something, like a remote box you install on a system out in the distance, drones is our name for those. Puppet's actually a lot more useful because it'll call back when it's online, because we have no guarantee of when things are going to be online. So if your system's only online for 10 minutes and you have a 30-minute window, it's very possible that system will never call back and therefore never apply updates or something like that. So for configuration management, it really depends on your situation. There's not a good answer. It's whatever fits your situation.
Right on. So speaking of the drones, are there any sneak peeks you could give us on what might come next for our drones? Because Desmond is pretty recent, your baby boy.
Yeah. So basically we build this whole system to basically make these remote systems go out and fix themselves and install and be able to pen test with them.
They're just like Nooks, right? Like Intel Nooks?
When you're pen testing, most of the thing that you need is you don't want a pen tester who's going to fly everywhere all the time, right?
Yeah.
Like there are, and I don't mean this in like you don't want one. This is bad, but like more of like as somebody, and I worked as a pen tester. Life sucks when you're spending all of your time in some hotel.
Yeah.
Like I've noticed that my personal limit is about once every month. I was flying out to a client site once every month for about 4 or 5 months. So I would spend a week out of every 3 or out of every month on client site. And you realize really quickly that when you do that, you don't have a personal life, you don't have a social life. You can't set up, hey, I'm going to go to the dentist or whatever. It's all of a sudden like, am I going to go to Peru at this all of a sudden, instead of, hey, I can actively have friends, I can actively plan on my future. And so the idea behind a drop-off device is really to prevent that, because if someone can get into that device and work from that device or do something with that device, then they don't have to spend all of their time flying. And on top of that, it's cheaper for a customer, because a customer can, do something like, hey, drop this in your environment. We don't have to pay for housing. We don't have to pay for flights. We don't have to pay. So instead of paying, $2,000 or $3,000 for a person to come on site for a week, you can just, because these things are never chosen, hey, we're going to do this 6 weeks out when all the things are cheap. It's last minute. Hey, you're getting on a plane next week, and now you have to pay for a hotel room that's been jacked up. You have to pay for a car that's more expensive. You have to pay for that. And so instead, hey, I'm going to ship you this thing. You're going to plug it into your network. It's going to call back, and life is going to be good. That's a lot easier. So a lot of things we're working on is on the back end. We're trying to make things more stable. We're trying to make things cleaner. We're trying to integrate drones and virtual systems and physical systems more. Kali's a great OS in some ways and a terrible one in other ones. I love what offensive security's done. It's hard to it's hard to but it's hard to build a distro. Like you never think that it's super, like you never think of how much work it takes to run a distribution of Linux until you actually start trying and stuff like that. But packaging things, bug testing, doing all of that work is really hard. And we don't know, and as a consumer, you don't think of those things. So I gotta give Offensive Security major credit for running a pen testing distro because it's hard.
Right.
But at the same time, I've had some times where I've really got, like, we are regularly filing bugs for things like the ISO build, their ISO, build distros break. Because, like, when you update a kernel on Linux, you have to update all the modules. But if your modules in your installer and the kernel that it's pulling down and stuff don't match, suddenly you have problems. So, like, trying to fix stability on those and make your virtual devices and your physical devices look the exact same from a perspective, because installing on client side is different from installing locally, is a lot of the things we're working on.
Do you have like a favorite distro
of Linux
or Windows? What's your preferred OS? What do you use?
I prefer Linux personally. Okay. Win 10 has had some major issues in terms of updates breaking things and stuff like that. And like, for instance, on my laptop, I bought a laptop, and the audio driver would break any external audio from working. So if there was any external audio, anything, plug it in, it wouldn't work. The only thing that would work is the on-site, because the audio drivers for the computer were busted. And I uninstalled the audio driver to fix it, and Windows reinstalled the audio driver before I had a chance to fix it. And so I couldn't fix the problem because Windows was trying to be smarter than me.
Nice.
And I'm like, dude, I got this. Please stop. And it's like, no.
That's the one thing that really bugs me about Windows 10 is, like, it's impossible to totally get rid of anything because Windows Update will just give it back to you. Like, I found this PowerShell script that's supposed to get rid of Cortana.
I nuked Cortana, and it was back in an update. And I'm like, I don't want Cortana.
Yeah.
I do not want Cortana.
And I don't want the little Castle Crashers ads constantly.
I don't need random applications.
Yeah.
I don't need random applications.
Okay, I do want Minecraft though. I do play Minecraft.
Yeah,
but no Candy Crush.
I don't want random applications installed on my computer without me installing them.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that's why I like Linux, is because it tends to be a lot more, hey, you're gonna do this thing, do it on your own.
What flavor though? Do you use like
Arch? I use Arch.
You use Arch.
I use Arch.
All right.
I use Arch for my
I use Arch.
Those people who are like, I use Arch too. There's like 5 of us.
Yeah.
But
Bryce uses Arch.
Yeah.
Victor uses Arch.
Yep.
Marcello uses Arch.
I use Arch. I use Arch for
those are the big names.
All right.
Exactly. But then I use Debian generally if I'm looking for a stable server.
Yeah.
Mostly because we don't want to pay for Red Hat.
Yeah.
Because Red Hat.
Why not just like CentOS?
I mean, it's still owned by Red Hat. It's still pretty much Red Hat.
But it's like the free one, right?
Well, yeah. The other thing is that Kali's a Debian spinoff. So it actually pulls from the Debian SID archives. And so since it pulls from Debian SID, there's no reason for us to run 2 separate Linux flavors that have drastic differences in them. Like, for instance, Yum versus apt is, I'm sure, the easiest one to mention. But then you start getting into like, well, this one manages this and this one manages this. So this is, this one uses Network Manager, and this one uses, and this one uses
System
network,
D versus
System D network or whatever it's called. And so you end up getting all these things where it's like you start having to try and juggle 2 distributions in your head. If everything's the same distribution, then it's really easy. I apply an update this place, I know it's going to work here and here and here, not just I install this one package, this one off here, and then I have a completely different thing that I have to provide for the pen test group.
Nice. Yeah, I use Debian usually, like same thing that you said, stable. Just because like if I have like a VM that I just always want to have something easily accessible, Linux, I use Debian.
Debian's got its problems.
Yeah.
I mean, every distro does. I could list off problems with probably every distro in terms of things that I've experienced as a user.
Except for Arch. Arch is perfect.
No, I've definitely experienced it.
Yeah, no,
the first
I
time
actually
I had
don't use
to
Arch
reinstall
anymore.
my computer after doing a Pac-Man update, and it just broke the entire computer flat out.
Yeah, Pac-Man SYU. Oops, it's broken.
Pac-Man SYU. Why do I have a black screen?
Yeah, why is nothing? The power button's not responding.
So that was actually an issue. I had an issue where I Pac-Man SYU. I rebooted the computer, and the computer stopped functioning because the kernel had switched which order it was loading the screens, and it was loading this was a laptop. It was loading all of the screen to the VGA output on the computer instead of loading it to the actual screen on the system.
Plug in an
so if
external
I plug it into a screen, it'd work fine, but I could never get it. And I had to revert the entire kernel in order to fix that.
Good old R&R.
Yeah. So stuff like that.
Fun.
Yeah, but yeah, those are the 2 that I use, but at the same time, that's mostly because that's the thing that works here.
So we talked about Sagitta support or
Sagitta.
Sagitta, is that how it's pronounced?
I'm gonna guess Sagitta. No one's ever told me. I've never talked to somebody and been like, "How do you pronounce it?"
Yeah. So it makes sense.
I think it's a Greek god.
Oh, like Sagittarius.
Yeah,
that makes
something.
sense.
It's something like that. I don't remember exactly what it is, but it's a reference to old mythology.
Maybe it's like a horsepower pun because like Sagittarius is like a horse, right?
So I don't remember. It's something we'd have to look up.
Yeah, I'm gonna look it up. Well, maybe we could put it in post. We could do like a little.
Go.
Yeah.
Just monologue it in post.
Yeah.
It turns out that this means.
So what about Nessus support? Like, have you ever had to deal with them?
Be really honest, Tenable's been pretty solid.
Tenable, that's right. Yeah, they've been pretty good.
Tenable's been pretty solid. Honestly, I haven't had a big problem with support from any of the major companies that I've worked with in terms of pen testing tools.
Nice.
There's definitely like there's some things you ask for this thing, and they're just like, wow. I mean, and arguably there's decisions that some companies make that kind of frustrate me. For instance, Tenable's decision with 8.0 to get rid of the API and remove multiple users. That really, because and it makes sense. I mean, they're trying to push their users towards using things like using the cloud and stuff like that. And this is not necessarily something, they want people to push towards Tenable.io and such. But at the same time, as somebody who runs it, the amount of weird things I've done, like writing Selenium scripts in order to do things,
because the API won't work. Yeah.
Well, for instance, like one of the things that happens is like you want pen testers. You may need a Nessus license now, but you don't always need a Nessus license. So being able to divvy those out is kind of a confusing thing.
I bet dealing with Desmond getting that set up was a interesting challenge.
So there's a Selenium API. There's a Selenium script I've actually written to help fix some of those problems, to like help manage our licensing and stuff like that for the people who are actually using it.
Nice.
And the drones, because like drones, I have this drone. I image the drone. I install Nessus on it. It goes out and does its pen test. It comes back, and we pretend to take this system. And suddenly I have this system that is now, it has a Nessus license installed on it, and I want to reinstall that Nessus license onto the same device and then ship it out again. But I don't want to touch that device as much as possible, because if I spend an hour re-imaging a drone, we're over 200 devices at this point. So yeah, between virtual and physical devices, I don't want to spend an hour. I don't want to have to spend an hour re-imaging this device. So anything I can automate out of that actively gives me time to make improvements instead of just working on the same device. So I had to write a Selenium script to go out and reset the license for me, because there's no way to do that inside of Tenable's environment. So that therefore I could then apply that to the same hardware.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's fun.
So stuff like that is stuff that and stuff like that is stuff that I've had to work around. And I've been asking Tenable for a while for an API so that I can just reset my licenses. I don't have to work through that. But that's not something that they've been necessarily all that interested in providing. At the same time, the support that Tenable itself has given me is really good. I even get, when you talk to them in person or talk to them over chat or something, you get a real person. You don't get there's no robot involved in the beginning. You get someone who's located in the US and isn't just necessarily reading off of a script, or at least someone who isn't necessarily reading a script. They may not be based in the US, but it's actually really nice because I've had conversations with the person where I was able to actively talk through the issue instead of just their responses being, these canned responses that they're reading off of a script. And that's a big issue that, I'm happy doesn't happen there.
Have you had to deal with AWS support too much, other than like the occasional?
Some, but not tons.
No? Okay.
No. Most of the thing we stay away from AWS because their rules on pen testing used to be much more draconian. So pen testing out of AWS was a lot harder.
Nice. Yeah.
You do like Linode too and stuff.
We do Linode or Linode. I have no idea. Once again, nobody's ever told me how you say it.
It's always in writing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they've been solid. Like their support, it used to be that their support would answer you pretty much guaranteed within like 3 minutes of sending a ticket in.
Dang, that's really
now
nice.
It's still like within an hour. Most of my tickets have always been responded to. They've always been super courteous. These companies actually do a really awesome job.
Nice.
That's good.
So, as far as like you guys, you and Luke,
yeah,
you manage just the pen testers, right? Or
No.
do you manage other people outside of pen test?
We manage way more than outside of pen test, and this actually causes problems because some of the pen testers don't realize that they're not the only group we support.
I didn't realize that.
We support pen test.
Right.
We support the ScanDesk group, or the they've got a new name now. The
Coalfire One Scanning Services.
Yes, you got it. So
Bex told me that a few times.
Yes. So Coalfire One Scanning Services. So they do that, or
What
we
do-
do that.
what do
we
they
support
do?
them. They do
ASV scan.
ASV
type
scans.
Oh,
So
okay.
PCI requires that you not only get a pen test once a year, but also that you get 4 scans every year as well that are just like, hey, here are the vulnerabilities you have, and you got to fix those. Okay. So you actually are required to do basically antivirus, anti-vulnerability scanning once a year, or 4 times a year, once a quarter. So you do that. But they do all of that work, and they also validate those scans and make sure that those things are patched correctly. It's another part of being secure in terms of PCI.
I've heard that they have a lot more like a consistent long-term connection with clients than the pen test team does. Like they'll interface with the client throughout the year.
They do. They're required to do 4 scans a year, so there's that. And then additionally, on top of the 4 scans, you have the remediation section. So they're actually required to have a certain certification in order to do that, and in order to do their jobs. And then on top of having that certification, then they have to spend their time talking to the client. The client provides proof of remediation. They do that. We also work with AppVal, who are the guys who do credit cards machines. So the guys who actually will get a car wash kiosk or something like that, and they have to validate that it fits PCI's standards for that in order to be deployed. So they actually have testing that's done on, you go to a grocery store like a Kroger or something, and they have the scanner that's sitting on that table, something like that. We do a lot of work involving those two. We have a team that does that work, and in fact, at one point we were, I think, one of the largest houses doing that work. I think in the U.S., possibly larger. So we did that as well. We work with those guys. We also work. Trying to think of who else we've worked with.
Cyber engineering at all?
Cyber engineering. We are actually part of engineering, so that's it.
Okay.
So we work with the CF1 guys and all that kind of stuff as well, but we aren't necessarily focused on their stuff. But I think those are the major groups, and forensics. We work with the forensics guys who do forensics engagements.
The 2 forensics guys, right?
Yeah. I mean, they're there, but
Yeah.
we do support them in order to make sure that they're taken care of as well. So we actually support 4 different departments, and most pen testers don't realize that we're not just the pen test guys. We actually support a lot of guys across Coalfire.
Yeah, I had no idea.
Yeah.
And do you guys have counterparts at other offices, or is it just you and Luke?
Just me and Luke.
Wow,
Goodness
that's
gracious.
crazy,
So we
man.
just moved to when we moved into engineering now we have another gentleman who's working with us, Noah Burnell up in
Burnell. I feel like I've seen his name recently. I'm working with the engineering guys right now for the Black Hat thing.
he's working with Joe.
Joe. I don't know Joe.
Okay. That's fine.
Maybe not.
But so we're all now part of the same team.
Nice.
And so we're taking on some of his workload, and he's taking on some of ours.
Cool. And I mean, you guys have moved desks so many times too, along with all the department moves.
I mean,
like
besides moving offices, there's probably about 7 or 10 or 7 or 8 moves in the 6 years I've been here.
Yeah,
I've moved departments 4 times now.
In the year and a half that I've been here, I've seen you move desks 4 times now. I think so. It's just insane.
There's as I said, I've been in 4 different departments. I just kind of get shuffled along depending on the politics at the moment.
Let's throw Josh that way.
Well, no, that's actually to some degree, because when you don't want pen test is a department that makes money, and is based on your pen testers are consultants, so therefore you have things like not remediation, but efficiencies and stuff like that, and how and utilization percentages. And someone who's sucking 40 hours of non-production time out every single week can cause your department major problems. So we've been moved into other departments and all that kind of stuff in order to make statistics a little bit better.
Wow. Like we got to make this department's numbers come up a little bit, so we got to move Josh out.
Not necessarily that, but like for instance, you don't necessarily need you don't necessarily need people who are doing that, because it screws up your metrics.
Yeah.
And metrics are basically how a lot of companies run things nowadays. Like metrics are a huge portion of how they run things. So
I was the first time I heard that like stigma behind IT being a leech to the company was I was working at an IT help desk, and a guy called in to get his password reset, and all of his security questions, the answers were something along the lines of like, IT does not provide value to the company. And there were like 5 security questions, like, what was your first car, yada yada, and every answer. Yeah. I was like,
and that's not necessarily
asshole.
true. It's something that actually drives me nuts about IT departments. That most people think that IT departments are actively going to take money from the company, and they're gonna But that's not necessarily true. What you do is IT, when done well, provides efficiency, I feel like. And maybe, I'm not an IT manager, I'm not a high up, VP or IT or anything. But from what I've seen is that a lot of people who think that way just think of the company in terms of dollars in, dollars out. And if you do IT, I mean, think about it, if we didn't do the drones, right? Then you guys would be flying to client sites every week. You're not going to be as efficient if you're literally flying to a client site every week, because how do you then you've got where do I take admin time, where do I now I have to deal with and on top of that the money that's going out in terms of expenses is a fair chunk too, and all that kind of stuff. So and turnover would be higher because that's a lifestyle that can kill people. And so the road warriors, got to give them credit, that's a heck of a job I couldn't do. But so because of all of that, you end up with all that. And so by providing drones, by providing some of these systems, we actively make you guys able to do your job better, easier, efficienter, happier. And that's the places where IT affects the company. They don't affect the company on, yes, I don't make the company money actively necessarily, but all of these other benefits make the company money because basically insert money, output efficiency.
Well, it seems like you create the platform for us to make money.
Yeah. So that's why if you have a good IT company, then they can keep stuff in line, and then or a good IT department, and they can keep stuff in line, and then you have people who are happier and faster at doing their thing going out the other side.
It sounds like it's similar to what Victor and Bryce and all those guys were saying about R&D.
Yeah.
Like R&D it's not directly billable to a client, so a lot of people are like, well, it doesn't make us money. And they have to go and prove, like, okay, look, if we're doing this, then this is happening, and then this is happening, and that makes us money.
NPK is not going to make us money. By designing and building NPK, we're not making money. Yeah. But what we are making is we're making a situation where it's a lot easier to run a lot of password cracking and do a lot of this stuff. And it builds, we've got some open source software out there. That's kind of cool. There's definitely a level of cred that comes with giving back to the community.
Yeah, people are going to use NPK at their company and be like, oh, who makes that? Coalfire? That sounds cool.
And so there's a lot of things that R&D or IT or these departments that don't actively, make you money do that builds your business and your brand in other ways.
So I got a question.
Yeah.
If you had like a month to just work on, and you didn't have to deal with like the day-to-day IT support stuff, just to work on like a project for Coalfire to help increase, like if you had R&D time, dedicated month of R&D, what would you do? Or like, if you don't have like a direct answer right now, what sort of like path would you follow?
I would be working pretty heavily on trying to make it easier and more secure to connect to things, to build things to. You can, it's really easy to stand things up. It's really hard to build things securely and maintain them and do that kind of stuff. And so I like a lot of the directions we're going. I probably would put a lot more work into Desmond in terms of, which is this dashboard that I've built and I'm working on to try and maintain our offsite stuff. But at the same time, right now, I feel like it doesn't provide enough value to you guys. It does Nessus updates or things. It does the statuses of drones and stuff, but we could do so much more with it. You could control access to servers. You could, hey, I need to get this. You could control resource allocation. You could control.
Oh, that'd be cool.
You could hook it into, hey, how do I make this so that I put passwords so they get cracked and stuff. The thing is that our entire job is to basically make people more efficient, more and faster and all that kind of stuff. And that's really awesome. But those efficiencies take time and stuff in order to build out the infrastructure behind them, and that's what I'd really like to do. So that's my end goal, is to basically try and make your guys' lives as easy as possible, because then you guys, if you guys spend 10% less time on a pen test because it's easier to write a report and it takes you less time to write the report, then that means that you guys are happier, because who wants to write reports?
I would love a better report generator.
Reports suck.
Then
I don't know a lot of auditors who are like, you know what my favorite part of the job is sitting down and writing the report, and especially for like the guys over in audit in the the guys who actually do go work in these things. They don't necessarily, they'll spend months writing a 300-page report. On a company's security posture, and if you can take that and make it so that they spend 2 months instead of 3, you have literally made like, then you can go on to another project and you're faster and more efficient and all that kind of stuff.
Now, I want to ask you something more on your personal life, because when I asked you to do the podcast, you told me about your OPSEC.
I was going to ask
philosophy.
about the same thing. That's funny.
And do you want to talk about that a little bit?
So I don't generally use. Are you talking about my dislike of social media
policy? Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't use social media.
Now, why don't you use it?
Because I did some pen testing early on for some large companies and was able to easily pull down badges and way more personal information than I ever should be able to. And people just give that information out for free.
Now, what do you mean by like you're able to pull down badges?
I was able to pull down things like copies of people's badges for companies from their intern programs. And then I use those pictures to form badges for a later red team.
Wow. Okay.
And so like that. And then personally on top of that, like, you know, it's really it's amazing how much personal information people are willing to give out for free.
They like talking about themselves.
Yeah, it's all that kind of stuff. It's like, you want to talk about all this stuff. It's like, there's not a lot of pictures out there. But like, you know, hey, here's me at the park. Here's me doing this. Here's me doing that. Eventually, people are really easily able to build, you know, hey, this is what this person's about and all this stuff. You want to know, the easiest way to explain it is if you don't know what the product is, if you're not actively buying the product, you are the product. And so like, I mean, think about the Cambridge Analytica scandal that just happened with Facebook. Think about, and it's still going on with Facebook. And think about, you know, how many times that people have been breached, or things like Equifax being breached or something like that. With that amount of information, I mean, I don't know, most people's computers are not, or most people's emails and stuff are not all that secure. You answer a couple of security questions, you get in. And that's super, 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 you know, not hard to get past when you have all of those answers available on your Facebook
What's
page.
your dog's name? And
Exactly.
it's like you can check their Instagram.
Yeah.
Here's a picture of my dog.
You know, hey, Facebook has built a family tree of me, and one of the major questions that's asked is, what's your mother's maiden name? Okay, so now I can pull your mom's maiden name. I'll go check the county records of that area, and I've got your mom's maiden name because I've got this record. You know, it's amazing. Just the amount of information you can pull from legitimate sources like a state is actually really incredible. I went and all I had was the parcel number, and I was able to pull the tax records for a parcel of land up in another part of Colorado.
Wow.
And like who owned that land. I was able to tell the names of every single person who owned that land. But I personally, and I never displayed a single piece of identification for whether I was supposed to even know that information or anything of the sort. The Colorado voter registration is currently available online. If you Google enough, you can find it. Yep. And because there's a dude from New Hampshire, I think it is, who buys it every single year and posts it for free.
Oh, wow.
So your current address, as well as your political affiliation and everything else, is available online for anybody to go look up and spam you with.
Then there's like the county assessor, like sometimes you can see blueprints for people's houses. And then whitepages.com, you just search somebody's first and last name and the city they're from. It'll tell you like their family, their phone number, their actual address, their age.
I mean, it's amazing how much information you can pull about people. And so one of the things I don't do is I'd rather, and on top of that, social media always kind of felt like it felt like a fake connection because the person is like, they're posting out to 500 people, right? They're not trying to interact with you.
Right.
And so why on earth would I, as a person, go interact with people like that? I'd rather interact with the people who, you know, I haven't heard, call you up because it's like, I haven't heard from you for a couple of months. Are you surviving? Are you okay? Are you alive? Not the people who are like, hey, look, you know, I'm going to post this on Facebook and include 50 of my closest people.
Like, do you do Slack and Discord?
I will converse on those.
This is not necessarily social media.
No, well, but I will use chat programs,
right? Okay.
Because I will chat with people, and I also understand that most of the things that I send over chat programs are probably not, like, for instance, Slack. Whoever owns that server, for discovery purposes, is going to be able to recover anything I say on Slack.
You don't have a Twitter?
I do not have a Twitter.
I'm surprised you have one just to follow people. Like,
I don't even know the last. I might have a Twitter account left over somewhere in the ether somewhere, but I haven't logged in so long. I'm not even sure if I do.
Ether, yeah. That's I don't know, like all this information that I've got about how easy it is to get information, like the white pages stuff, the county assessors, the voter record stuff, marriage record stuff. Learning about all that has just kind of had the opposite effect on me. Like, I care less about OPSEC now because I know just how
it's not even
it's hopeless. It's hopeless trying to protect yourself
to some degree. But on the other hand, like, why not spend some time just? I mean, the goal of security. Let's face it. I mean, computers are inherently insecure, right? No one's going to be able to be like, that computer is entirely secure, because that's just not how it goes, you know? Someone coming up, and I think Neil deGrasse Tyson said something along the lines of, we just need to start building computers without vulnerabilities. And
that'd be really nice.
That'd be really nice. That totally, you can't do that.
Yeah.
It's not like people aren't trying to do
Right,
that
right. But
no more bugs. Come on.
Yeah, just no more vulnerabilities in my computers. That's
you know
fine.
what? You're right. It's a good idea.
Go to space.
But so, you know, that thing, yes. But on the other hand, what you do is you make it so that you are not the easiest target to attack. So if you are not the simplest person to hit, then it's going. If you do some very basic things to make yourself more secure and more of that, then it's not worrying about, okay, are these, am I going to get hit? It's, well, now it's 10 times harder to hit me than the guy next door. So they're going to hit. It's like, a lock is not going to stop someone from breaking into your house. If somebody really wants to break into your house, they'll break a window and get in.
True.
And okay, so, no matter what, there's going to be a way. You can get into anything given enough time and effort.
Right.
And so, and that time and effort may be longer than the human lifespan or something like that. But given enough time and effort, and so instead it's about making it so that you are not a reasonable target to attack.
So some of your personal policies, what are some of your rules that you have in place? Like no pictures was one.
I do not actually, I try not to have pictures, and this is clearly violating that.
Right, I know. And that
but I don't generally, this is probably one of the few places online that you're going to be able to find a name of my name and my face link.
Huh.
Yeah.
I don't generally do it.
Your name, John?
Yes, John Wick. I'm secretly an assassin. I generally don't have. In fact, I think Coalfire has one picture of.
Nice.
One.
Oh yeah, I remember.
For a while.
Daryl has a similar thing. He doesn't like doing pictures. He just puts like his logo on all of his like link stuff,
the hate-shaped
Outlook
man.
stuff. Yeah, the hate-shaped man.
Yeah.
The man shaped like hate.
Yeah, no, and that's the same exact thing. Is I just, and that's why. And so, as I said, I'm clearly violating that here. But
I put my sweet roll thing on a ton of stuff, but not because I don't like people seeing me. I like the logo a lot.
Yeah.
It's a brand.
I like mine too.
But yeah, so that's most of it. It's just like, it's really easy. I have a LinkedIn. You can go and see, hey, I work for Coalfire. Hey, before Coalfire, I worked for Kaiser Permanente. Hey, before that, I worked for CSU. But what you're not going to be is like seeing is like, today I had 3 pieces of French toast. And hey, this is my current girlfriend, and this is my current da-da-da. That's not going to be something that's going to be easily found and all that kind of stuff.
What did you do at Kaiser?
I was a ticket monkey.
That was the ticket monkey place you're talking about.
So I signed up for the job, and it was not what I was told, and so nothing. I'm not gonna really go on because I don't want to.
You don't want to bash Kaiser Permanente.
I don't want to bash anybody, but it was not what I was originally expecting.
You're gonna
and
get a
so
mad doctor
that's why I got here.
Nice.
Yeah.
I had one of those bait and switch jobs too, and I'll talk about it. I don't think there's any rule. I'm not scared.
That happened to me too.
No, it was for. I worked at their corporate headquarters. When I got interviewed there, it was like cybersecurity technician. The interview was very technical. It was like, we're going to ask you technical questions. You're going to be a technical guy. And then I get there and it's a lot of like PCI paperwork. I was like, this is not what I signed up for.
PCI is surprisingly paperwork heavy.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing, it's surprisingly policy heavy and it's got some very interesting things that I noticed are not in the documentation. For instance, PCI wants your data secure, but they don't really care if your data's on fire. So like you could have a data center that's on fire, but if the wrong people can't get in to hurt it, then that's totally okay. So like your data center meltdown, totally PCI compliant.
Fire burns everybody,
yeah, exactly.
Even the thieves.
Yeah, but you can do some of the regulatory frameworks out there are kind of like that, where you can light thing, this thing is protected, but that thing isn't mentioned at all. But it makes perfect sense for PCI because like PCI is not worried about. If the data gets lost in a fire or in a mass wipeout or something like that, that's totally okay because it's still secure at that point. What they're worried about is your credit cards.
Yeah, as long as they're locked up with a 7-character alphanumeric password, you're safe.
I think it's 8.
I thought it was 7 most recently, and it was
I
just
don't know.
alphanumeric. There was no case.
I haven't read the PCI DSS in a long time.
Oh.
It's gone. Back when I was doing it, it was the 2 something. It was 2 something, and now it's past. I think it's 4.
Like 3.4 now or something.
It's like 3 or 4 now.
Yeah.
So
what are some things that people do that makes your job tougher?
What in terms of pen testers?
It can be anybody. It doesn't have to be us.
No, but
Preferably
most of my job
management.
is spent managing pen testers.
You want to bash management? Say about like how you don't like what they're doing?
No,
No, I would never.
Well, it had to do with Coalfire.
like the biggest issue with this is that you're dealing with a unique environment.
Right.
Pen testers are great. They're most of the time super technical. They understand a lot about this, in terms of compared to a normal user. Like, I'm not usually going to have an issue of like my password doesn't work because I did, and it's because they're fat fingering their password. But at the same time, you deal with a lot of problems like, this one engagement is happening and the only way to connect to it is this really obscure method. And can we make that happen? And it's like, great. How do I one off a kind of a weird situation in a way that is not going to be insecure? Or how do I, hey, this we had a client recently who asked for us to literally remove the wireless cards from the devices before we shipped them because they didn't want any wireless pen testing going on. And so we actually had to open the devices and remove them and then ship the devices. And then when you get those devices back, you have to remember to reinsert the wireless cards and stuff. Because if those ever go on a wireless pen test again, then you have to, I screw in a radio antenna, it doesn't matter, it doesn't work. So you get things like that, or hey, can you meet this esoteric requirement that it has, because every company is different and you're trying to fit their security policy in terms of doing things, but at the same time you have to give your pen tester the access they need to do their job. And so we also get a lot of the thing like hack naked's a thing, right? The term, yes, I know the shirts exist, but the term exists because hack naked basically means like don't hack with firewalls, with antivirus, with all of this stuff, because you have the need to do your work without a lot of these walls. Because if I send out a shell and it comes back and it hits my firewall when it does, if I send out a reverse shell and it hits my firewall, and the reverse shell ends up not going through my firewall because I haven't allowed the firewall, suddenly my pen test doesn't work, even though I'm doing everything right because this one thing in the way. And so you have to kind of juggle this. How do I make everything accessible as possible for the goal of doing this job, while how do I also make things as secure as possible? Because you're doing a pen test on a company, and you want to keep that company's information secure too.
So what's kept you at Coalfire for 6 years, or 6, right?
It's been interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No, seriously.
Yeah, that's fair.
No, that's it.
Oh, okay.
Coalfire is itself. I've worked here. I've worked here as a small company. I've worked here as a medium-sized company. I've worked here. We're starting to get to a pretty decent-sized company. I've been through a company that has moved this office. I've seen a company that has opened multiple offices, including ones in other countries. The company itself, my department is about the size of the office that I was in. Like the pen test department is now the size of the entire team is about the same number of people that were in the office that I was in when I started at Coalfire.
Wow.
So I have seen a lot of growth. I've done a lot of different things. I got a chance to do audit. I got a chance to do pen test. I got a chance to do system networking, engineering, all of those things. I've grown a lot while I've been at Coalfire, and I've learned a lot. So that's most of the reason is because no matter what it is, it's always been an interesting experience. I've always gained knowledge. I've always, I'm not staying stagnant, which is a problem. Like I see a lot of my friends, they go to the job and they end up sitting there doing the same job, and there's not really a chance for advancement until they move to another employer.
Yeah.
So that really kind of sucks, but I've actually seen a lot of things. When I came into Coalfire, I was an associate consultant, and now we're looking at rearranging, and I'm hoping that I might become a senior, but either that or I'm going to be a senior or a engineer or systems engineer, a senior systems engineer or a regular systems engineer. That's a lot of changes in this company. I've been a pen tester, I've been an associate pen tester, and then a regular pen tester. I've been a DevOps, I've been all over the place, and I've learned a lot of different things, and I've never had to stop because I don't learn.
So what's next? You said system engineer. What would the next thing that you want to tackle be for that?
We have a lot of integrating to do.
A lot of integrating?
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? Like integrating the drones and stuff like you were talking about?
Integrating the drones, integrating the corporate and the lab side a little bit more.
Oh.
Well, so you don't want to keep separate systems and all that. You want to keep everything as standard as possible. And a previous person in IT somewhat segmented that out.
So could you come up a bit, actually?
Yeah, sure.
Sweet.
A previous person in IT kind of segmented that out, and so we're trying to collapse it into a more cohesive infrastructure.
Nice.
As well as, I mean, you acquire companies and you do things like that. I mean, there was the Veris acquisition and all that. How do you manage all of these people's needs without?
I bet that acquisition was a doozy to handle, huh?
Yes. That's all I'm going to say on it. Yeah.
Yes. Just a strong yes. I would be terribly made fun of if I didn't ask you about jo.sh.
So I actually want to know about jo.sh because I found out about it later.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
Have you heard about jo.sh?
It is a script that tries to
do your job, essentially.
improve VMs.
Yeah.
I have a copy of it. It's great. We'd like to integrate it more into the drones.
Mm-hmm.
We just haven't had the time.
Yeah.
But it is highly entertaining.
I just
it
love
was
the
named
name.
jo.sh.
It's so clever.
Yeah.
But
I don't entirely know what to make of it, but
well, I mean, it's convenient that you have a name that ends with a file extension for a scripting language.
yeah.
So
but is
it's-
that why it was named that? Was because it was named that for me?
Yeah, it was named.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like, okay, so like Josh does drones and VMs, and this script works on
Does
the VMs.
VMs.
Yeah, so it was like, we'll name it because it's a Bash script.
It is a Bash script.
I don't know
It
how
does-
Daryl. It must have been like divine intervention to like tell him name it Josh.
That dude is a wizard in a lot of ways with
Yeah,
Bash. In
very
ways that
smart
I'm not. I'll write Python all day. I'll do all sorts of stuff, but not.
We need to
we
win
wanna get him on for a
we
bug
need to
bounty
win
episode.
some sort of bet to get him on here.
Does he not want to be on?
We haven't really asked him too much. I hit him up once, and he kind of gave like a I don't know type answer. So hopefully we can win him over.
The guy is like we're ranked 80th in the world in on Bug Bounty or whatever.
Yeah, on Bug Crowd, he's like really high up
80.
there.
Yeah.
Last year he made I want to say like 6 figures off bug bounties.
Well, dang, you put that man's wallet on the
Yeah.
but,
Well,
I
I
mean,
mean,
he's making money though.
I don't know. Yeah, bug bounty money. That sounds nice.
I'll be honest. I'd love to get into bug bounties and stuff like that. I miss pen testing. I miss the technical work involved in pen testing. It's a very different skill set than most people think. To like, for instance, as someone who did the red team, breaking into things and doing all that is great. And you got to know this whole skill set, and you start getting into the deeper stuff, which is like how do I do not networking, but how do I modify int codes and all that kind of stuff. You start talking about working blue team, and it's a completely different environment. And most people don't realize that blue team and red team are so different. People figure, oh, you're a pen tester. You can totally run a service. And that's not necessarily true because the making things stable, making things, all of that stuff, and breaking things are very different. I mean, they're complementary skill sets. Having a knowledge of how something's made, knowing how to write a web app is great for knowing how to break a web app.
Yeah.
But if you know how to write a web app, that gives no guarantee that you're going to know how to break a web app, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting in terms of all of that.
I would say that's one of my biggest regrets in my career so far, but since I'm still pretty fresh early into my career, I can change it definitely.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I just haven't had much blue team experience.
Same here.
It's a very I would actually say that it's not a bad thing for someone who's on the red team to have some blue team experience.
Yeah, I would love to get blue team experience, but I don't want to leave my sweet red team job.
Right.
I'll be honest, blue team doesn't tend to pay as well.
Yeah, I've heard
it's
that.
really frustrating because
Really?
blue team doesn't tend to pay as well. Blue team,
Unless it's like very specialized.
yeah,
like
but on the
cloud
other
engineering or
hand,
something.
like that's really sad because the blue team guys have some serious skills that the red team guys could really learn from, and on top of that, blue team has some specializations that red team doesn't ever think about. Like you have things. Some of the best pen testers I've ever met have come from blue team.
Yeah, Brad is really smart with like cloud blue
Ryan
team stuff.
McDougall, who's
Mr.
now
Robot?
one of the guys working. No, but Brian McDougall, who's
Blue
one of the guys who works with I think social engineering.
Yeah, he's with social engineer now. Yeah.
Yeah, but he was, I think, one of the best pen testers I'd ever seen. And and the thing is that he's also spent years and years and years being blue team, getting used to how blue team worked. And when he came into red team, that knowledge really benefited him in ways that you wouldn't expect. And so that's one thing I feel like a lot of people will jump straight into red team.
It's more sexy and fun.
It
and
is.
cool.
It is. But on the other hand, there's some serious awesomeness that comes with the things that happen in blue team too.
When I was at that SANS course in Virginia, have you guys ever been to a SANS thing, either of you?
I have not.
Okay, so in addition to the class, some SANS events will have this thing called Net Wars, which is like a CTF that happens in the evenings after the class. And while I was there, a lot of the challenges were defensive. Like you were going through Wireshark stuff and like volatility memory forensics things. And seeing some of the blue team people that I was on a team with, like they were teaching me a lot about Wireshark.
Yeah,
I was like, I did not know you could do all this.
Wireshark's got some really solid stuff. And as I said, like I miss the red team because doing all this blue team is great. But there's also I've let my red team skills have kind of slacked off. I don't spend enough time red teaming to make my red team skills worthwhile.
Yeah.
Because, hey, I don't, it's not like you can just walk out and be like, I'm going to go break into a company and then tell them their vulnerabilities. That's not something that, I really don't like getting hit up for the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, which is why I don't do those things.
Yeah.
And that's, 5 years in prison doesn't sound super fun to me. I don't know about you.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah. So that's a skill set that's a lot harder to train when you're not in it. And when, like, for instance, I have my OSCP, I have my OSWP.
Oh, nice.
But I don't have an OSW or OSCE or any of the higher ones because, to be really honest, they don't serve me a lot in my career path the way that it's going. So they're cool, they're sexy, I want one, but they just, paying the money and spending the time is a lot of money.
So I want to talk about that a bit more. Earlier, you mentioned offensive security and how much respect and admiration you had. Nate gave me a look and started laughing. So I want to revisit a topic from a previous episode. I don't know if you saw, but we were talking about certifications and offensive security in the OSCP. And how the OSCP is like an industry standard pen test cert that everybody really respects.
It is.
Yeah. I would agree. Especially
it's a really well known
given
one.
The other ones. Yeah.
Yeah, like the CEH.
It's great if you're going to. Well, I'm not gonna diss on the CEH. It's great for what it is and the things that it's intended for.
Yeah.
If you want to go work for a government position or something like that,
the DoD or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Then it's worth it. Is it something that I would necessarily say you should go get if you're going to go work for a pen test company? Maybe not.
Yeah. So the conversation that we had before was about their other certs, like their wireless pen testing cert and their web app pen testing cert and the OSCE. I made a statement that Nate deemed controversial enough to say like an outro. He was like, "Offensive security, we love you." I'm standing by it. I'm standing by it. I talked to somebody that I work with, Eric Warfield.
Down.
Eric Warfield at the South Denver office. You can hit him up if you want a second opinion.
Wow.
He just signed up for the web app testing cert, and he told me the same thing I've heard from other people. It is PHP code review that has not taught him very much.
So
wow, okay, all right.
So the web app one, I can say I've heard multiple times now is not that valuable.
I have some opinions on that, but I'm not entirely sure. Do you want them?
Yeah, I would love to hear your
I think OffSec did a really good job on building out their stuff. Like for instance, the wireless pen testing cert. It had a giant chunk of the book is all about how PHP or not PHP but wireless pen testing works. And that's really good. But it definitely could use a little bit of an update.
Well, because it's all like you're still cracking WEP, right? For the OSWP, it's still WEP and WPA1
and PA2 and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, but on the other hand, once again, it's solid work for when it was written.
Yeah.
It may need a little bit of an update.
And I've heard the same thing about the OSCE.
That's kind of how I've heard the same thing. And I'm not dissing on those certs because, to be really honest, writing a cert for a secure once again, I can't hate on offensive security at all. Because they do a lot of this and they do a lot of it for free.
Yeah, oh my God.
They do a lot of work for these things and they're doing a lot to improve the state of pen testing.
Yeah.
Is it perfect? No, but nothing ever is. Yeah. Like you want to talk about, it's really easy, why don't you have these things that are important in your environment? It's like, have you ever tried to write a class? It's freaking hard.
Mm-hmm. Would we all agree that OffSec is the pinnacle of
excellence? And
I value my OffSec cert pretty highly.
What's
I'm going to be honest.
Better than OffSec cert? Like,
I wouldn't say there's necessary. That's what I'm saying is there's not a lot out there that I'd be like, this is like, for instance, I wouldn't say that, if you want a technical understanding of what you're doing, I'm not going to tell you the CISSP or a CEH or any of these other sorts are going to give you a better technical understanding. Is it perfect? No. But is it going to be a heck of a lot better than most of the other things? Yes. And it also, I will say, it does a great job of weeding out a lot of people who don't want to put the work in. They just want it. Like the amount of people, I think when I started my OSCP, it had a fairly large number of, or it had a lot of people who didn't make it through the entire course. I remember one guy I was talking to and he was trying to do one of the programming challenges for it. And he couldn't understand pointers and it ended up breaking him. To the point where I never saw him do the test. I never saw him again. He never popped back on IRC.
Man. Oh, no.
But like there were a lot of people who were really chill people who just like that. The thing is that one of the things it taught me that was really good was it taught me to beat my head against a problem until it eventually got solved.
Yeah.
And that is something that I had to learn as pen test. I had a lot of the technical skill. I walked in and I went through the book pretty quickly. I think the entire book's like 20 chapter or 20 pages,
like the OSCP
chapters.
PDF. That you get?
Yeah, there's something like that, and I went through that pretty quickly. But
the labs are where the meat of it.
The labs are the meat of it, and the thing is a lot of it is just spent. Like it's definitely not the easiest test because you do have to spend a lot of time learning on your own, and a lot of people are very frustrated that it's not going to hold your hand through everything. Yeah. But on the other hand, some of those lessons about not having to do those things is some of the places where it really, really, really shines in terms of learning. It teaches you a lot more about mindset. Even the technical stuff is nice, but the mindset part, and I don't think there's any other test out there that does that compared to the OSCP.
Yeah, the try harder mentality,
exactly.
definitely helps.
And I feel like once you get out of the course, you don't have any hand holding. Once you're
that's exactly.
You get the ROE.
There's a new vulnerability that comes out. Congratulations. You have to figure out whether you can exploit it and how to exploit it and find the code and verify the code doesn't do something horrifying because that happens.
Sending shells out to China.
Yeah, exactly. And so you have to do all of these things and you have to verify your tools and all of that. And you can't do that stuff if you don't have you can't do that stuff without that mindset and without those skills. And that's, I think, where it really shines.
The OSCP taught me about compiling. I didn't even know that compiling was a thing before I took the OSCP. Like the difference.
Did you only use interpreted languages?
Yeah,
at
the
that
difference
point?
between interpreted stuff like PowerShell and Python versus like C compiled into an exe.
Yep,
I had no idea.
I couldn't stand
or even the fact that C is that compiling C for Linux is different than compiling it for Windows.
Yeah, you have to do certain flags and stuff.
And use possibly even different compilers.
Yeah. So OSCP definitely super valuable. Yeah. And I'm not trying to like start beef with OffSec.
No.
Like I have a lot of respect for him.
I wouldn't let that happen.
Yeah.
I have a lot of respect for the work they do. I mean, but that's the same thing. I guarantee there are people who deal with us that have the same exact kind of complaints.
Yeah. Like Coalfire was good, but not the best. Like that's fine.
Well, not even that. But Coalfire was good. There's these things that they could do better. I mean, that's the whole point of a survey after you do a pen test. Is,
right, exactly.
Okay, where did we do well? Where did we do poorly? Where can we improve? Because the goal of everybody, I personally, the goal should not be to be perfect every single time. The goal should be I'm not going to fail in the same ways.
Yeah,
that's important. And you can't win every single thing.
So Josh, can you tell me a little bit about your involvement in DenHack and how you got into that crowd?
DenHack is a local hackerspace. Hackerspaces were what they called makerspaces before makerspaces existed.
Local to Denver, I think, because we have people watching in Ghana. No. I mean,
no. So
DenHack
is local to Denver, but hackerspaces have been around for longer than that. There was a hackerspaces.org, and that's actually where hackerspaces used to get listed. Makerspaces weren't a thing until fairly recently. I think it's been like the last 5 or 6, 10, 7 years.
You said there's a company called Make that like bought
Make.
it? Is that right?
So Make, there's this company called Make. They run Make magazine. And they're the ones who coined and kind of pushed the term makerspace. They also there was some major beef over that as well. And on top of that, they run Maker Fair. Maker Fair. Yeah, so big fair where all the makers, that's the term for the people, come and they show off the things they've done. There's these groups, and all this. And so makerspaces and hackerspaces and all this are this kind of movement of people who are trying to learn to make things, build things, do things. It's a place for people who are technically inclined to go learn, go experiment. Like we have a laser cutter. You want to go cut things with a laser, you can do that. You would want to print things 3D printer. We've got those. You want a lathe, we can do that. So if you want to go learn these things and you want to go be about these things, you want to go take apart a microwave and figure out that, probably shouldn't turn it on while it's taken apart. But beyond that, if you bring a microwave, we're not going to stop you from taking it apart. Dude, but the thing is, it comes out with some really cool things. One of the dudes that's there is actually building a bike generator that while he's pedaling his bike, it automatically turns the lights on his bike and actually makes the lights blink and stuff.
That's right.
And so people are building stuff there. And it's this whole kind of maker hacker community culture. And so DenHack's the oldest one in Denver. Or actually the oldest one in Colorado. It's been around for more than 10 years now.
Wow.
And that's way before that. It started out with an Arduino in a bar. Dude started just showing up with an Arduino in a bar, and until eventually they formed a group big enough to actually start having a hackerspace, and so we have a hackerspace.
And you've been involved for how many years now?
I've been part of it for 5 or 6 years. I was a board member for 3.
Board member?
Yeah, I'm not at the moment. I'm not at the moment because other people wanted it, and I kind of believe that there should be new blood going through every once in a while or circulating. So I'm not gonna take a spot on the board just to bench warm. That just seems like a waste.
So did you know Scott before Scott started?
In fact, Scott and I have known each other for about 4 years. I don't know if anybody else outside of this knows Scott, but. Outside, out in other countries,
in Ghana,
but yeah, that name's not going to mean a lot. But yeah, actually, in
Scott.
fact, the reason he's here is because of DenHack.
Nice.
Yeah,
we're actually thinking about doing an episode at DenHack, recording, and he's going to give us a tour, and we'll follow him around. We talked to him earlier today about that.
If there's a thing in DenHack, there's a good chance I had a hand in it.
Nice.
I have had a hand in a disturbingly large number of the things that are currently at DenHack.
Disturbingly large.
Well, so you're like, you don't realize that you spent a lot of time and energy working on something like working on DEF CON or working on these things until like you look back and you go like, well, that was me, and that was me, and that I was involved in, and I built that, and you're just like, okay, and then you start realizing that like you have actually had an effect on the world around you. You don't build an effect on things by doing big changes. All of a sudden, it's better. You do things by slowly making these things. Oh, this time we built tables. So this time we built, we moved this. So this time we improved this. This time I wrote this code. It's like making a product. People think it's like, oh, that person wrote, let's take, some product. Somebody wrote Metasploit in a day or Meterpreter in a day, right? It's not how it works. Somebody, they had the original idea. They built this original framework and then they chunk on this next piece because that makes life easier. And this next piece. And eventually you have this big, scary program that is ubiquitous because it's so awesome. But, these bits and pieces of it were added on gradually as the project grew. And so DenHack's a lot like that, where, I look back at it and I go like, one weekend we got annoyed at the fact that some of the tables were falling apart. So we showed up at Lowe's at 8:45 and bought a ton of lumber, and they were so angry because they closed at 9 and we were there until 9:30. And then we spent until 4 a.m. making new stuff for DenHack. On the fly because we needed to repair something, and those things have held up for 4 years. You don't expect to spend, you don't expect your work to be around for 4 years, but that was a spur of the moment. This is going to make life better moment that changed things.
So where is it physically located? Because I never want to go into downtown Denver, and if it's in downtown
6th
Denver,
and Kalamath, it's actually, or 7th and Kalamath to be specific. It's actually super easy. You get off right on 6th. It's right there. You don't have to go into Lake Lodo or anything.
Okay.
It's a 5 minute. 30. I can usually do it in about 2.5, but I'm going to say 5 minute jaunt from I-25.
Have you been there?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I've never been.
Really?
Have you ever been?
Yeah, I went.
Yeah, it's super
nice.
easy. Well, the day that this whole office was being rebuilt, a lot of you guys went down to that office.
Oh no, I only went with Scott.
Okay, then yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I've never been.
Heck, I was there yesterday.
I keep an eye on Meetup, and I keep in touch with Scott and like a few other people that go, and they always have stuff that sounds fun. But
if you're in South Denver, it's not too far from you.
I'm not in South Denver,
Aurora?
though. Yeah, I'm in Aurora.
So it's in your corner of it's in your section of Denver in that quadrant.
I should go. When's the next thing happening? What's happening next?
It's open. I mean, the next thing is Hack DenHack on Saturday, but I suggest going to an open house, which is every Tuesday night.
Every Tuesday night. I'm going to get Scott to give me the tour.
At 8. Yeah, do that. I mean, everybody there, the thing is, the people there are really technically inclined. I would call them all hackers, even though they don't have security jobs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's one chick I met there. She was all about Prime. You know who I'm talking about? She was all about prime numbers and like.
This sounds. Yes, I think I know who you're talking about.
She was very
there's a whole group. And the thing is that the groups,
cool,
the people span huge groups. We've got people who work on blue team. We got people who work on red team. We have people who don't work in the computer security industry at all. We had one guy. We have people who are looking to get into it. We have college students. We have people who work in electrical engineering. We have people who do. Who don't do any of these things for a living at all. And these people are just like, web devs, people who are in the finance industry. It kind of goes across the board. It's all more of the kind of person who's like, I want to understand how the world works at a deeper level. And that's not something that you're going to see a lot of in the you don't see a lot of in the normal. It's kind of a bubble. You think that that a pen testing gig shows off hackers, and that is, I would say, more hacker than a pen testing gig ever will be, because pen testers are not de facto hackers.
You were saying, I like when you said earlier about the difference between security professionals and hackers.
Well, it's like you asked while we were off camera, and I'm sorry about this.
Was that on that?
Yeah, that was off camera. You asked me about why do I like DEF CON more than I like B-Sides or DerbyCon, because I'm really sad that DerbyCon's ending, but I'm also kind of not. That's not my con, and it's not because I work for DEF CON. It's more of because DerbyCon and Black Hat are security cons. You go there, you talk about security. There are security companies presenting. It's all about security, but it isn't about hacking. And I don't mean hacking isn't like sitting there in a dark room typing with a green screen, green stuff coming up at your face. It's more about like the idea of understanding, right? DEF CON has a lot of contests. It has a lot of villages and stuff that teach you things. You go to DerbyCon. I went to DerbyCon, and there were a lot of people drinking and a lot of people going to talks, and there were companies that were selling things. And those are great. That is, that's a pretty standard security con vibe. Black Hat's the same way, right? Unless you're going to the trainings or whatever, you go in, there are people trying to sell you their things, show off their things. And that's great. That's awesome. Go those events. They're great for industry meetups and something. I went to DEF CON, and in the middle of the room, just sitting there, was a dude who was handing out, who had a bunch of keypads. And he just brought the keypads in, and he was handing them to people with a little guide on how to build them, and he was teaching people side channel attacks because he wanted people to understand how a side channel attack worked. So you built the keypad with the Arduino, and then you hooked into the Arduino and actually did a side channel attack against the code that you wrote for the Arduino, so you understood how a side channel attack worked.
Wow.
And that was really a cool experience.
That's super neat.
You go into DEF CON and you go into the wireless packet village, and it's like, okay, we have a bunch of this wireless traffic going across the room. Here's a computer, sit down, running Wireshark, parse these things out, figure out where these vulnerability or what's going across the wire on this wireless network. Across the wire, but yeah,
across the wireless,
across the wireless network, and like, here, look, we can piece together. Here's what a phone call looks like over this network.
Wow.
Here's what this looks like. Here, you can. And it was really cool because DEF CON. I don't go to DEF CON talks anymore because the talks are really cool. I watch them afterward. They're awesome. But the knowledge, the going and learning from the villages, from the contest, that's where I think the meat of DEF CON is. And that's why I prefer to go to DEF CON. If you go to DEF CON and the talks, I believe you're missing out.
Now,
go ahead.
I was going to say, what's the difference in the experience between gooning for DEF CON and then just experiencing?
It's a family. Like, goons are a family in
Do
a lot
you
of ways.
miss out when you goon? Or?
You do.
Okay.
Like, I don't get to compete in contests because what contest? I can't. Like, you talk about the scavenger hunt, right? And one of the things is bringing them a live chicken. Like, seriously, that was one of the things on one of the lists one year. And they got like 3 live chickens. Yeah.
That's interesting.
The scavenger hunt. Oh man, the scavenger hunt is all sorts of fun. Grab one of the scavenger hunt lists and read through it every year. It's entertaining. And a lot of the things that cannot be mentioned on this podcast. But like one of them was bring a flaming mixtape. So they brought in a cast iron skillet. They set it in a pan. And then they set a mixtape in the pan, and they proceeded to douse it with lighter fluid and light it on fire.
In the middle of DEF CON?
In the middle of a DEF CON.
Oh my god.
And they were like, put that out before it sets off the fire alarm, you win. But the thing is like, stuff like that happens at DEF CON. And you can't compete in challenges like that. You can't compete in CTF challenges. But
can you go to the villages?
You can, like, you get some of the time off to go do things. But you can't go spend a lot of time out and about because, like, you're working a shift for 8 hours every day.
And what do you get from the experience?
You get a lot of community. I mean, obviously, goons get like a free badge to DEF CON, and they get a couple of t-shirts to show that they're a goon, so that therefore you're able to be spotted on con floor, and you get your hotel room paid for, and a little bit of food. But on the other, like, that's the physical things you get for gooning. Yeah. I mean, but that makes sense considering that you're literally spending your entire weekend doing service. You're not
working.
But you also get this community among the goons where, you know, I go and I hang out with my friends every year that I get to meet once a year. And so that is a huge thing that I don't get to go hang out with, like, the friends that are, like, you know, the hackers and stuff that I haven't met, but you get to hang out with this family of people who all throw this event. There's a camaraderie there.
I like that. I'm looking forward to going.
You've never been?
I've never been.
You didn't get to go last year?
I've never been to a con before in my life.
This will be an interesting experience for you then.
Well, B-Sides Denver's coming up, and it sounds like
B-Sides Denver. Going to be a B-Sides Denver. I actually suggest B-Sides Las Vegas if you want to go to a B-Sides too. If you go, it's between Black Hat and DEF CON. Like, it's in that sandwiched in that middle area. And the con, you go, you pay for the hotel room, and you get a free badge to the con. Excuse me. And they only have a certain amount of badges. Badges are free. Like, you don't pay to go into Derby or into B-Sides Las Vegas. You don't pay for entrance. You pay for a hotel room or as a sponsor, or you wait in line and you get a free badge.
Does B-Sides have badges like this?
They're little poker chips usually.
Oh, okay.
Poker chips, yes.
B-Sides Denver, I think, was just like a typical laminated badge.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of worried about B-Sides Denver this year, guys.
Why?
They just sent out. So okay. Did you go to B-Sides Denver last year?
I did not.
Okay, so B-Sides Denver last year, it was a little messy. Like, things didn't start at the right time. There were things that got canceled. There weren't any T-shirts. So, it was kind of a mess. And the welcome to B-Sides talk that they did at the start, like, not the keynote really, but like hey, everybody, welcome. This is what's going to happen. The lady started it off by apologizing for like 5 minutes about how it was a mess. So that wasn't a good sign. And then this year, like 2 months ago, they tweeted out like, hey, stand by, we're about to announce some stuff. 2 months ago. Nothing's happened since then. And just this morning, they posted a bunch of new information, and a lot of it is like TBD, TBA, we don't know yet, we're working on it, please be patient.
It's hard.
Yeah, I imagine putting on a con is really hard. Yeah.
You know, as someone who's worked a lot of cons, I think I'm up to, 1 year I worked 12 conventions in 1 year.
12 in 1 year? Yeah. Oh my goodness.
But, well, this includes being a vendor at a couple of them.
Oh,
It includes just helping out in terms of staff and being a grunt level staff. It includes all that. But going to cons and working cons are a surprising amount of work behind the scenes, and it's a really thankless job.
Well, and it's free, which is amazing.
Yeah, but it's a thankless job to do the whole thing.
Yeah,
because besides you have to find sponsors for everything.
Yeah,
it's not easy to find sponsors for. I need space. I need badges. I need people. I need blah. I need blah.
Food.
I need blah. Yeah, how do I provide all these things? But you'd be amazed. I mean, have you ever watched the DEF CON 20 documentary?
No. I've heard of it, yeah.
Do it, especially since you've never been before. Watch the DEF CON 20 documentary. It's a great piece of work.
I may have
Jason Scott made it. Fantastic. But the thing is that, and in fact, some of it was taken in Den Haag.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. But with this whole con, or with this thing, you don't realize how much they talk about how the fact of the moment DEF CON ends, we start planning for next year. That's not joking. Like, I work another convention that is going on in September, and I've already opened up like call for talks, call for panels. We've already opened up all of these things. We've got plans for what places we're doing. We've already got we're buying. Yeah, wow. We've been planning this stuff since January, and that was and that kind of stuff. So
is this like a major con or like
this is this? I mean, it's in the middle.
Okay. It's not a security thing?
It's not a security thing.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So, but like you're amazed by, you think, it's super easy, but no, the amount of work that actually goes into putting a convention into place is actually fairly substantial. And most people don't think about it. And you as a staff members suck. I mean, I hear this at DEF CON. Like, they're like, goons suck. And you're like, on the other hand, like, I had one guy, I think it was like DEF CON 23 or 24, who was like, we don't need goons. We didn't need goons at the first DEF CON. And I'm like, the first DEF CON was 100 people, and now we're at 25,000 people. I think that was the number they announced like a couple years ago.
That's insane.
Yeah, so something like
and
that.
it's believable. I mean, if
yeah.
you
So
walk through
and now you're
Caesars
at such a larger number of people. You have to have security goons and all these other things because we're not dealing with 100. You can't know every person at DEF CON.
Yeah.
And he was like, you know what? You make a good point. And I never heard another thing from him in terms of like disparaging us again.
Nice.
But like a lot of people don't understand that like you are yelling for 8 hours as a security goon, or as a con, as a person who I run panels in another con. I am constantly telling people you need to get up against the wall and all this stuff. And the reason is not because I want to be an asshole and tell people that they have to stand up against a wall.
I love yelling at people.
Oh yeah, exactly. Perfect. You learn how to be very loud but not be mean.
Yeah.
But the thing is that it's actually a fire hazard for people to be sitting in the middle of the hall, but you can't tell people, hey, you're being a fire hazard. Like, that's not, move, you're being a fire hazard is not considered good PR for a con.
We're all going to catch on fire.
Right, but at the same time, having to tell people, but you're really having to tell people, hey, you need to, you controlling that large of a crowd. You think it's really easy until you do it.
Yeah.
So I hope the best for B-Sides Denver. But I can also see, it's hard.
I've been advocating for this. Hexacon needs to go public ASAP.
Oh yeah.
We need to take Hexacon and make it B-Sides Boulder, and start getting the dough and start
I like
that.
how clean Coalfire is. Like the design, the elegance. It's just such a pretty, and I'm a sucker for orange.
Orange is a good color. Look at these Nerf guns. Orange,
look at the
black.
jacket. I mean,
my
fresh.
jacket.
It's just
you guys get jackets. I just have my DEF CON hoodie.
You don't get a Coalfire jacket?
Hoodie. No, I don't get the lab stuff because I'm no longer technically part of labs.
I'll smuggle you something.
Heck, I don't.
That's crazy.
Yeah, heck, I don't give my trip to DEF CON paid. I pay my own trip to DEF CON.
Dang.
Every year.
Wow.
That's brutal. Unforgivable.
Well, our execs are going to be hearing this.
Yeah. Tom, if you're watching, what's up, man?
All right, that's Logan.
That might be a little dangerous.
Well, I'm not going to, no.
Strong arm.
All right. We're going to keep that piece in, but just no.
No, that's okay. I mean, that's just what happened.
Yeah. No, I guess I get it. Like, because if they make an exception for you, then they got to make an exception for
It's not even making an exception or anything. It's just when I stopped being part of labs, it wasn't a priority anymore.
Yeah.
So that happens. Yeah. Goals are different. Like, there's not a real big reason for the guys at that are in in professional services or audit people or anything like that. There's not a reason for those guys to be necessarily going to DEF CON.
Yeah.
What DEF CON are we on? Is it
27?
27? Yeah.
So that whole pile. The white ones are
I didn't get a chance to look at this one.
Yeah, the white ones are humans, and the red ones are goons, and that one that you're holding right there.
What is a Whiskey Pirate?
A Whiskey Pirates is a group. It's kind of like 303 or any of the other groups that happen within DEF CON that are kind of these groups. They usually rent out a suite, and they will do that. I actually have a DC Furs badge somewhere, but it's not here. I fried it. Yeah. I was trying to fix a couple of dead LEDs on it, and I managed to overvolt or pour way too much voltage across it and fry the thing, and that made me super sad.
I'm surprised you haven't seen some badges from Jim. Jim's got some sweet
Jim's
badges.
got some scary badges.
Yeah.
Like his ones mess with Bluetooth and stuff.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Jim's got one badge that he actually let me borrow when we were at DEF CON last year. Thank you so much, Jim, if you're watching. It was like a dial-up phone, like a rotary phone that had contacts. You could actually if you press certain numbers, it would do certain things. So you could add friends by calling a phone number.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Dude, the badges at these conventions is huge. You want to talk about a culture? Badge culture, badge life is a huge deal. There are people who build badges for the car hacking village. There are people who build badges for their friends.
How do you
There
get
are people.
them?
Depends on the badge. Some of them you can buy. Some of them, like the car hacking village, you buy. Some of them you are gifted. Some of them you have to be part of a certain group to get. Some of them are available for purchase in the dealer's room. It really depends on the badge. I know some of the groups flat out just they only appear on Twitter. They tweet out where they're going to be. And then if you show up, then you can buy a badge, and that's the only place you can get. But they appear and disappear randomly.
Dang. Challenge coin culture is also pretty
challenge coin culture. I mean, there's a couple of them on here too, like this one, which is one of the old goon only challenge coins from 23. Right. And the thing is, I've never been able to figure out the challenge that Lost put on it, which is kind of cool.
I got my first challenge coin at that Sands class, and that was a week ago. And then I got my second challenge coin today from Beck for Rise. So I'm just now realizing how sweet challenge coins are.
They can be really awesome. The only problem I have is now that I have a pile of challenge coins and I have no idea what to do.
I mean, they're cool. You can show
no
people.
Idea.
Especially people that are totally outside this bubble, like you said. Yeah. They don't get never heard of a challenge coin.
And pushing it's check out my badge. What does it do? It's a Commodore 64. It doesn't make a lot of sense to a lot of people.
Yeah, right. Look, these contacts, they light up.
Yeah. Cool. Well, for instance, it was cool because last year's badge was a giant was a text adventure. And has Hall effect sensors and stuff on it, but the couple years before that was a playing card, and the playing card had hidden traces because it was a multiple layer PCB and all that. So, but yeah, I mean it's all over the place.
Hidden trace. Would you have to melt part of the board?
No, so if you actually hold it up to the light, if you hold it up in front of you to the light, you can see through it to the traces.
Connect to those traces? You don't.
They're actually hidden clues inside of the PCB. Oh. Yeah, and so that year they actually made a deck of cards. So you could actually, if you collected all of the cards had different information on them. So you had to collect all the information for different stuff. But all of the cards had different information on them, and I forget what I have. I the 6 of phones or something like that.
6 of phones.
Well, so the 4 DEF CON items, but. Yeah, I think we're getting a little bit heavy into DEF CON culture. So it's somewhere in here. I don't want to move around too much. It's in front of you guys somewhere. Huh. Yes, and that's tight, man. That's a record. I'm excited. An actual playable record.
Yeah, I'm excited for you to come to DEF CON.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting
blast. Experience. I'm going for 11 days this year.
Are you going to Black Hat and DEF CON?
I'm teaching at Black Hat the adaptive penetration testing course.
I did that once.
Yeah.
Never again.
Oh, you're teaching a class?
Yeah, I'm teaching at Black Hat. And then, I'm excited to teach. Yeah. I'm just not excited to be in Vegas for 11 days.
Exactly.
I want to go to DEF CON.
11 days killed me.
Vegas
I was so done by day 7.
Yeah, Vegas by day 4, you're okay, stop drinking. I got to stop eating all these fried foods. I got to stop, being out in the sun all the time, talking to people.
Excuse me.
After a few days, you need, a day of just... detox to just sit in your room by yourself and stare at your ceiling,
and you're just I don't need any more stimulation.
Right Turn the lights off.
I get done with DEF CON, and then I used to take my flight out at about 11 a.m. the day after DEF CON, and now I try to take my flight out at 8 a.m. the day after DEF CON, because what happens is I wander Vegas for about 2 hours and realize how much I hate Vegas. And because I'm there, I enjoy the con, but the moment that I'm done with con, I want to be home.
Yeah. Vegas is a doozy of a city. One recommendation I have is make plans to do stuff besides just go to the con. You'll have plenty of time to go to shows, to go out to explore other places. There's Penn and Teller, and then Cirque du Soleil. Make sure to have some time to at least go to a few of those while you're in Vegas. Especially if you're there for a week.
I personally disagree, but that's my own personal thing.
You just want to do all con all the time?
If I'm in Vegas, I want to do con, and if I'm not doing con, I don't want to be in Vegas.
Oh man, I loved God, what was the name of that show? It's at the Spiegel tent. It's this.
Oh yeah, the weird one that's right outside of Caesars.
Absinthe. Yeah, Absinthe, outside of Caesars in this big circus tent. It's called Absinthe. That is a blast of a show. I would really recommend it.
I mean, that's everybody's got their own way of doing it.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't, I don't know, you'll feel it out when you're there.
You'll feel it, yeah. And your first, I didn't really hit my stride at DEF CON until my 3rd year. It took me 3 years to figure it out.
What do I want to do while I'm here?
No, it didn't take, it wasn't that. It's I didn't actually had enough connections or anything. I hadn't been to enough things. And so I spent my first couple of years trying to figure things out. And by year 3, I'd finally figured it out. I got bodily pulled into a party. Like somebody grabbed me by the shirt and yanked me inside of a party.
Nice.
So yeah, that worked out really well. But like the second year we ended up was the year that the Egyptian badges happened.
Sweet.
And we were unbricking badges, and Lost was shipping people to us to fix their badges. And we got an image of every single badge, including the Uber badge. And that was really bad because we started flashing human badges, Uber badges, and then releasing people with human badges out into the world with Uber badges flashed. And those would actually deactivate themselves for 2 days if they came in contact. Badge? So, well, we are definitely getting into DEF CON history. So there's all these different kinds of badges, right? There's different colors. They're different. A human is a person who just goes to DEF CON.
Right.
Red is a goon. It's a staff member. There's press. There's people who work for vendors,
and then if you're doing a talk, it's a different one.
If you're a speaker, you get a badge. It's a blue one, I believe,
or maybe badge.
Something like that. So the black badge is the Uber badge. Black badge is you get. So if you win a contest that is deemed respectable enough, and they deem them respectable randomly at the con.
Okay.
Except for there's one contest which is capture the flag that gets black badges for the winners by default.
Bryce got a black badge, I think, 1 or 2 years.
Right. Right. And so if you get a black badge. Number one, the black badges are usually crazy. Like what they do for the black badges is crazy. Like one year they made a tritium infused brick. So like you couldn't take it home because it got radiation. And another one they got they had like this whole eye that came out of it and it was a completely like animatronic face. And another year they like made it out of gold. And so the black badge is always kind of this unique thing for the year that you win it. But the black badge gives you life access to DEF CON for life.
Oh, wow.
And so you get free access to DEF CON for life. You get free badges. And
cool.
You get to go through Inhuman registration, which is like 1/10 the length of
okay, so Inhuman registration is just registration for anybody besides
that isn't humans. And so you get to go through that, and it's all great.
I wondered about that last year. I was like, what is this? This line is way shorter.
So, the Inhuman registration is basically if you're a speaker, staff, vendor, or something like that. But so black badges... Yeah, so an Uber badge, we got it. But the thing is that they this year, that year 20, they actually made the Uber badge. So you had to talk to everybody, and it has a light emitting. It has not a LED, but like a UV diode or something like that. I forget what the diode was. Maybe it was IR. IR diode, so it would actually flash out what kind of badge it was. So if you were talking to somebody else, your badges would talk and tell each other what kind of badge you were. So if you talked to different people, you'd actually get different effects on your badge. If you talked to a goon before to a certain time, it would lock your badge out for like up to 8 hours. What? And so what it would do is it would actually set a bit, because we pulled the whole thing down and we took it apart. Is it would actually set a counter in the system in RAM and in ROM, not even RAM. It would have a written counter that actually like it counted down, but you couldn't take the batteries out and plug it back in to fix it. It would be stuck in memory, and it would actually until it counted down to 0. And so it'd count down, and your badge was inoperable until then. It would be scrambled. And if you talked to a goon or to an Uber badge before that time was up, then the Uber badge would flat out brick your badge for up to like 3 days, is what we figured out. So like you could, or 2 days. So you could brick your badge for most of the convention by getting too close to an Uber badge at the wrong time. And it was crucial in order to solve some of the challenges to take that badge and talk to every single person in order.
But not the goon and then the Uber badge, right?
You wanted to talk to a goon and then an Uber in that order.
Wow. Huh.
And so, because it would brick your badge to do it any other way. And so we got a copy of the Uber badge and started flashing human badges with the firmware for the Uber badge, which then would just brick badges as they were walking down the hallways. I think that one's either set to goon or Uber right now.
Wait, what, this one?
That one right there is currently a goon or an Uber badge right now.
That's too funny.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So we did stupid things like that at DEF CON. Those are the kinds of things that are fun.
Sweet. Yeah, it's sneaking up on us, too.
Yeah.
They're just now starting to send out emails to everybody internally, like, hey, guys.
What's your plans?
Yeah, you come
Because as someone who works the back end of the security.
I need to send the email.
As the people who do the IT work, this office is dead. Most of these offices are dead during DEF CON, DerbyCon. Like, you want to know a good time to get all of your work done? Like, get all of the improvements you want to get made and have us all the time to program?
For you?
For me? For someone who's working on the back end, it is while you guys are out at those conventions. If I didn't also attend those conventions, it'd be a lot better.
Luke's going to be very busy, right? Is he going to go, you think?
He has mentioned that he'd like to.
That'd be cool. Yeah.
Oh, really? Has he been?
I don't think he's been there for a while.
Okay.
DEF CON has changed a lot.
That's true.
You want to talk about DEF CON, the old DEF CON versus the new DEF CON, off camera.
Really? We asked Luke McComey when he was on about it.
Yeah.
He talked a little bit about the history.
Yeah. Alexa Park was a little bit of an insane period for DEF CON. Let's just put it that way.
Alexa Park. I don't know what
that's
that
the
is.
hotel.
That's the old. Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
That's the old hotel that didn't have a casino in it. It wasn't on the strip.
Huh. All right.
Yeah.
I think it's time to wrap up. Honestly, we've been here
Yeah.
for a minute.
I hope I gave you enough about IT or about the IT side of it. I think I'm more of we kind of just went all over. I apologize for that.
DevOps and DEF CON flows well. They both start with DE.
Yeah.
So that's a good title right there.
Honestly, the DevOps thing,
DevCon.
I wouldn't ever trade this group of users for another group of users if I'm going to end up doing an IT support kind of position, because having technically competent users creates some very unique and awesome situations, and arguably some unique and awesome problems.
I felt like
you're not dealing
compliment.
with. Yeah, I think
it is.
Yeah.
For the most part, as I said, we don't. Well, I said earlier, we don't get as many problems from you guys as we used to. Like, for instance, or not used to, but from the average user, you don't get a lot of my Outlook disappeared kind of thing. We don't get those.
We can clear our own browser cache and stuff like that.
But on the other hand, we get ones like, I accidentally wiped my computer while using DD. What do I do? I'm just like, well, we need to get you a new copy of Windows.
Well, did you back up?
Yeah, did you back up? Cool. It's a heck of a learning moment.
Yeah, right.
What's a backup?
We can fix a lot of problems, but it's really hard to fix problems that the users create themselves. And you guys present some interesting problems, or pen testers present some interesting problems, because how do you make an environment secure while still providing the access you need to do the job?
Yeah, like the thing that you were showing Nate earlier about sudo on nmap.
Yeah,
the fact that you can just read any file.
Nobody thinks about that. It's like I'm gonna nmap a thing, and I need sudo access because there's certain ports you need sudo access to do, and stuff like that. And
like UDP stuff,
UDP scans and something. You actually on Linux you can't access the bottom 124 port or 1024 ports without being sudo. And so, but at the same time, using sudo as root also means that you have some certain problems.
Yeah. Well,
or using nmap as root.
So, Josh, in wrapping up, where can people find you if they want to talk to you or
Good luck. Good luck.
Good luck. Okay.
I have a GitHub, I think, that is linked to the Coalfire organization.
And then you're going to be at the cons.
I will be at DEF CON. I'm going to see if I can make B-sides, but that's a money thing.
Do you have a handle? JSO?
I don't really have a handle.
I
don't have a handle that I'm comfortable giving out, believe it or not.
All right. Cool.
An enigma. That's Josh.
Yes.
Josh the Enigma.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Cool. That wraps it, I guess, for episode 4.
Yeah. Thank you.
I guess Crav works because I'm in the DEF CON books, like the DEF CON books. Thank you to
Crav?
Krav, Krav.
Okay.
Crav. All right.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, right on. Thank you for coming, Josh.
Yeah.
It's been a real pleasure.
And thank you for breaking your OPSEC rules to join. I know you're not excited about that.
I'm not entirely. I'm not that worried about it. At some point, you gotta be open about it. It's not like there aren't pictures of me out there if you look hard enough.
Google's got satellites.
The problem is you can totally find this. You can totally say I'm secure at all this. I'm not having this information, but I can't control what other people post to Facebook. If they go with Josh, then I'm like, great.
Thanks. Yeah.
I mean I don't know because I don't have a Facebook. I couldn't tell. I can't log in to find out. I can't log in to find out.
All right. Well, thanks for watching, everybody. Yeah. This has been CoalCast. Do we have an outro?
Not really.
Do you have an intro song or an outro song?
Yeah, we'll fade out.
Okay.
We'll fade out.
We'll just fade out.
I thought you were going to keep going.
No. Thank you, guys.
Is that reasonable?
Take care. Bye.